And we're live on match day as Doug reaches for a buffalo wing. He's got it! Oh, and he's gone for a can of Pepsi too! What a finish! There's no doubt about it. It just tastes better. Match days deserve Pepsi.
Where is Daredevil?
I'm right here. Don't miss the return of Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again.
So what's next?
I feel liberated.
We're gonna take this city back.
Over medicated.
In an all-new season, now streaming only on Disney+.
They're hunting us. It's time we started hunting them.
I can work with that.
This should be tons of fun.
Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again, now streaming only on Disney+.
I wrote a little song to remind you. Choice Hotels get you more of the experiences you value. The Cambria Hotel's got it all. A rooftop bar, have a ball. Bring a date, your squad, or even your mom. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individuals participating in the show. All persons described or mentioned in the podcast should be considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. This podcast contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions along with adult language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
On the morning of June 13th, 2001, a 19-year-old stepped out of his family home in Omaha, Nebraska, expecting to walk just 8 blocks to Benson High School. He was meeting a coworker for a ride to work, a routine trip that should have taken no more than 15 minutes. He never arrived. There were no screams, no signs of a struggle, no abandoned belongings, and no witnesses who could explain what happened. Somewhere along that short walk through a quiet residential neighborhood, he vanished without a trace. More than 2 decades later, investigators still have no suspects, no evidence, and no answers. You're listening to the Mysterious Brews podcast, and tonight we bring you the case of Jason Jolkowski.
Welcome to a deep, dark, dank, moist basement somewhere in the bowels of Georgia. And it is extra moist. Since the Hurricane came through and we got a little bit of rain, the humidity is way high. You walk out in the mornings and it'll slap you in the face.
It's rough, man, and I gotta work in this shit. Dressed up in a nice outfit, walking around outside, going into different places. It sucks.
Being a whole full-ass adult.
I know, right? Who come up with that shit? Whose idea was it?
I don't like it.
I don't want to be a whole-ass adult. I don't even want to be an adult.
I don't either. I'm tired of adulting. I told you off air I had to make the circuit of grocery stores this morning, and it was early, and it was way too peoply outside.
Dude, we went to like Trader Joe's and a bookstore yesterday. We were only there, each of them, for like 30 minutes at the bookstore and 15 minutes at Trader Joe's, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm done with this. No more.
Yeah,
I don't care to see anyone.
And I despise going to the grocery store or Walmart during peak hours. I would rather you curb stomp my nether region repeatedly than make me go into Walmart on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. It's awful. It's awful.
It really is.
Well,
it's kind of ridiculous, man. I wish I would have known when I was younger just how bad people sucked.
Yeah. So we got on Maggie's episode on Patreon, the good Dr. KTB says, so I'm just now listening, and I think the fact that it's not odd to Arlo and the coach that they would put a banana or a plantain where the sun doesn't shine on a loved one seems to be skipped over in the exploration of the size of plantains versus bananas.
I didn't come up with it.
We just kind of
Somebody on TikTok's just made a song about it. You know what? It's just silly enough. It's one of those jokes. My wife's done it. It's one of them jokes where it's not funny at first. You're like, okay, that's stupid. And then, but about the 12th to 15th time you get the same thing, it's hilarious. I can't help but laugh. And then her whole point of it was for me, sometime later, to be just sitting around the house or cleaning the kitchen. And then all of a sudden I'm like, don't put bananas in my son of a bitch. Like,
and that's what Heater said. Heater said that he sang that song and cussed you the entire time.
That's what I'm saying. That was her whole goal. That's the goal now. Oh. And she was very good at it, and she laughed her behind off.
We don't have any comments on the.
What can you do?
Spotify.
You can't do nothing but love the woman because she's amazing.
Look at you, just being all smitten.
I am smitten. That she's a good lady.
So we tried to go to Wardlaw's Saturday.
Yeah.
Emphasis on tried. And for those of you not around where Coach and I live, it's a barbecue place. It's supposed to have the most phenomenal brisket around. And
it really does. Do not get me wrong. The brisket is amazing, but their ribs are actually better. Their ribs are probably the best ribs I've ever had.
So I was like, let's get up there. Let's try to get up there about 15 minutes before they open back up at 5, and forgot that it was Father's Day weekend. I shit you not. We got there at 4:45. We would have been the 60th through 62nd people in line. There was nowhere to park. There was a lady up front sitting on, I guess, a bench, and she was having a hot flash. Somebody was taking something and fanning her, and I just turned and looked, and I was like, pizza it is. And we went to Vocelli's.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because that is in Lafayette, Georgia. If you're ever in the neighborhood, go out of your way to go to Wardlaw's Lucky IQ. I'm glad to hear you say that, because my in-laws finally came to Georgia. They'd never been to my house before, so they came down just to see where I kidnapped their daughter and hiding her away from them. So they wanted to see where I live. And we showed them around, and then we went to Calhoun, and we took them to Thatcher's, which is all right.
Yeah, it's not.
But the whole time I'm trying to tell her dad, I'm like, man, if we could have just went to Wardlaw's, this Wardlaw's so much better. Wardlaw's so much better. But I'm glad to hear that it was so crowded you couldn't eat, because I would have been disappointed if we'd have made the whole trip up there.
So we come in off of 27. So you come up to that T intersection, and you got to take a left to go back to the parking lot. Well, as we're taking that left, I can see like 10 or 15 people. I'm like, well, that's not too bad. I mean, as we make that turn to go to the parking lot, it just keeps snaking around back up the hill to the parking lot. I was like, it ain't worth it. Sorry.
Yeah, well, this ain't barbecue brews. I wish it was, but it ain't. But just trust me. The guy, I went there Thursday because I got to go up there for work. Not to Wardlaw's, but I go to Wardlaw's because I'm in Lafayette. Guy was there, and he was like, man, I was in Cincinnati because he was from London. He was like, I told people in Cincinnati I was coming to Georgia to go to Florida. And they said, well, if you go to Georgia, you got to go to Wardlaw's.
Dang.
I was talking about it in Cincinnati.
Dang, bro. That's impressive. I mean, I
don't know.
I've heard it's good. A buddy of mine went up there and ate. He loves it. I think we're going to try again maybe Saturday for lunch, but we'll see.
You know what I'm getting a kick out of? We're going to get it back to our international audiences. There's somebody somewhere in Malta or something. Like, oh, okay. They'll write that down. If I ever go to Lafayette, Georgia. But I'm loving those videos of the World Cup. All the people from all the countries visiting America, and they're going to Buc-ee's and they're going to Waffle House for the first time. And
encountering ranch dressing, and they're not even getting good ranch dressing. Like, it's just Hidden Valley Ranch.
I don't remember if I sent it to you or not, but I meant to. Was the TSA agent like confiscation bin? It's just full of ranch.
Yeah, because it's not refrigerated.
The Buc-ee's is so funny because like it's because Buc-ee's is so convoluted to begin with. I just don't get the hype about it. I mean, I like their brisket; it's okay. I like their baked goods; it's okay. But I'm not the people that go and they buy T-shirts and stickers on their car. Every time I've gone there, somebody. Probably about 8 or 9 cars that are pumping gas at the Buc-ee's have a Buc-ee's bumper sticker on there. It's like, that's ridiculous. But speaking of in-laws again, on our way back from Calhoun, we stopped there because her mom wanted to get some of the beaver nuggets, and they'd never been. Her dad is like 5'6", maybe. Completely lost that man in Buc-ee's.
Yeah, we stopped at the one down in Warner Robins going to Florida a couple years ago, and we just had to, as soon as we walked in, I was like, we meet right here after everybody gets what they want. 10 minutes. After that, I'm going to get on the loudspeaker. But anyway, all right, boys and girls, we don't have any new patrons to speak of, no new 5-star reviews, so we're going to jump in this one. It is Jason Jolkowski. Now, Jason Anthony Jolkowski was born on June 24th, 1981 in Grand Island, Nebraska. He was the oldest child to Jim and Kelly Jolkowski and would later become a big brother when his little brother Michael was born. From the beginning, Jim and Kelly noticed that Jason was different. He was diagnosed with a mild learning disability, and that was related to speech and language processing, which occasionally made school difficult. Those who knew Jason described him as a young man with above-average intelligence, a quiet thoughtfulness, and a kindness that drew people to him despite his shyness. He was a remarkably polite person, and his mother would say, quote, Jason was a quiet boy. He only had a small handful of friends, end quote. He loved his parents and his little brother ferociously, and he would often tell whoever he was on the phone with to, quote, hold on, I've got to go tuck my younger brother into bed, and seriously, he would put the phone down and go. So he was responsible, reliable, the sort of person that you could count on to show up when he said he would and to do what he said he was going to do. So after graduating from Benson High School in Omaha, Jason enrolled at Iowa Western Community College in Council Bluffs, Iowa, which is located just across the Missouri River from Omaha, Nebraska. There he studied radio broadcasting, an odd career path considering how shy he was and his quiet nature. However, when Jason got behind the microphone, he lost his shyness. Sarah James, a fellow DJ at the college radio station, recalled, quote, when he was on the air, he was so enthusiastic and peppy, end quote. On the air, Jason came alive in a way he couldn't face to face. His dream was to become a disc jockey, making a career in radio. He had already worked part-time at the college station KWR and loved every minute of it. And the future seemed bright, but college was getting pretty expensive. And in the spring of 2001, Jason decided that he was going to take a semester off to save some money. Now, he was living at home with his parents and his little brother, working part-time at the local Fazoli's restaurant and preparing.
You ever been there?
Yeah, it's awful.
It's not the greatest.
No.
Maybe...
No, it's not.
You got to take a little time with Italian food, apparently.
Yeah, it's not good. It's just like we went and I don't even think I finished my meal, and I was like, well, I won't be back. It's not happening.
You know what's genius though? Is Little Caesars. When they came out with those hot and readies, that was genius. Hopefully somebody got a raise for that.
Did you know their thin crust pizza is basically a giant tortilla?
I thought that was most of them, man. It's what it's for.
Look at you trying to be all smart over there.
Hey, shut up. Man, shut your mouth when you talk to me. What's wrong with you?
So Jason had recently been offered a position at Seal Corporation in Omaha, which was a customer service company that offered better pay and, more importantly, a tuition assistance program that would help him get back to school a little bit faster. So on Wednesday, June 13th, 2001, the morning began normally enough. Jim and Kelly left for work, leaving Jason and Michael at home. It was summer break, and Jason was 19 and Michael was 13. This was the kind of morning where nothing much was expected to happen. Sometime that morning, the phone rang, and it was Jason's boss at Fazoli's asking if he could come in early. Jason said he would, but his car was in the shop being repaired at a local garage. So Jason offered to walk to Fazoli's, but that was just over 4 miles away, located at 80th and Cass Street. Now, it would have been a long walk, but Jason still was willing to do it. His boss was like, no, how about you get a ride with this other employee? And Jason was like, okay. And so he calls this other coworker and arranges a time that she would be there to pick him up. So this is where they say that Jason's shyness came into play. He was extremely bad at giving directions, and he knew this. So rather than try to explain to her how to find his house, he suggested, how about we just meet at Benson High School? And they both had graduated from there, so they both knew where it was at. Now, the school was only 8 blocks from Jason's house, roughly a half a mile. Easy walk, so they decided that's where they were going to meet, and it would be at 11 o'clock in the high school parking lot. So Jason gets ready, puts on his work uniform, which consisted of black dress pants. I
don't usually wear dress plants.
Well, most of us don't. So he's got on black dress pants, black dress shoes, and a white Chicago Cubs t-shirt. And he grabs his blue Cubs baseball hat and his red Fazoli's work shirt. Now, according to his mother, Jason would have also grabbed his cell phone, his wallet, which contained no more than $60, and that's about all he would have put in his pockets. So sometime around 10:45 a.m., Jason's younger brother Michael asked him to help carry the trash cans from the curb back to the garage. Now, this is witnessed by a neighbor, Chester Link. And so they get the trash cans back to the garage. He goes in, grabs his stuff, says his goodbyes. Michael watches him walk away from the house, heading down the street towards the high school. Unfortunately, that would be the last time anyone who knew Jason Jolkowski ever saw him. So somewhere between 11:15 and 11:30, the coworker that he was meeting called his house, and Michael picked up. She was at the high school waiting in the parking lot, but Jason had not shown up. Michael didn't know where his brother was at because he had left the house around 10:45 and should have already been there. So the coworker waited, but Jason never showed up. And when Jim and Kelly came home from work that evening, they learned that Jason had not shown up for work and had been missing all day. Now, his coworker had waited and finally left without him right before their shift would have started. And no one knew where Jason was at. His mom, Kelly, called Jason's friends to see if they had seen him or heard from him, but no one had. She checked with relatives. No one had heard from him. And this was completely out of character for Jason. He was responsible, showed up when he said he would. He just didn't flake out on everybody and didn't tell or wouldn't tell someone if he was not going into work. The family wanted to call the police immediately, but they had heard, like so many other families, that there was a mandatory 24-hour waiting period before police would accept a missing persons report. Now, in 2001, that's not the case, but the Jolkowskis didn't know that. So they waited through
for no one to know, like if he changed his plans, somebody would have known.
Right.
It is very odd for a teenager. He might not tell your parents, but you're not just going to, most people just aren't going to go off by themselves for no reason. They're going to be meeting up with their friends. They're going to be meeting up with a girl. They're going to be doing something that somebody else is aware of.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there was a single time in my entire teenage years where no one knew where I was. there was a lot of times my mom had no clue where I was. A lot of times. But somebody else knew. So for no one to know and no one to fess up, that's very odd.
It is, but it's never it's never stated as fact, but it's almost like he has OCD. Like he's got this checklist. Okay, I'm going to work. I'm going to work. I'm going to work. No, I can't go hang out. I've got to go to work. Those kind of things. But that OCD kind of encompassed his life. And so for him, and we'll get into the theories, but for him to just blow off work, blow off the coworker that he had talked to earlier is way out of character. So the Jolkowskis wait through the night hoping that Jason would walk through the door with some explanation that made sense, but he never did. The next morning, June 14th, 2001, Jim and Kelly file a missing persons report with the Omaha Police Department. Now, police initially treated Jason's disappearance as a likely runaway situation because he was 19. He's a legal adult. He's got the right to leave and not tell anybody. But from the police's perspective, there was nothing observably suspicious. No signs of struggle at the house, no indications of foul play, just a young man who didn't show up where he was supposed to be. So for approximately 10 days after Jason's disappearance was reported by his parents, the police did not conduct a formal investigation. They did not interview the neighbors. They didn't search the route between his house and the high school. They didn't treat the case as anything more than a runaway.
See, this is the thing, though, and we, as armchair detectives, can get some blinders on because we will sit here and go, well, clearly something was wrong. Why didn't they investigate? But then again, we don't have the stats on how many times that action was the correct action.
No,
how many times has someone been reported missing and, well, they just ran away and 2 hours later they're found and they were like, oh, I just didn't feel like coming home. We don't have that statistic. But we can sit here and criticize because it sounds crazy knowing what we know.
Well, the only thing that I don't understand is the 10 days without doing any interviews. Like, take the missing persons report. Even if you believe he's a runaway, just go check. I mean, it's not going...
Yeah, 10 days is pretty excessive.
I mean, that's 2 working business weeks, buddy.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's true. That's a good point.
So...
I was trying to defend law enforcement for once, and now you're going to poke holes in it.
I'm not shitting on them. I'm just saying the 10-day thing is kind of raise your eyebrows. So any physical traces that may have been left behind were basically washed away by weather, foot traffic, and just the passage of 10 days. So Kelly Jolkowski would later express frustration about those lost days, stating, quote, "We would have liked to have seen more activity in those first crucial hours," end quote. So it was only after those 10 days that police began to take the case serious. And when they did investigate, they didn't find anything. The investigation that followed was extensive, but it didn't yield anything. And the police finally interviewed his friends, his family, his neighbors, his coworkers. No one had seen anything unusual on the morning of the 13th. No one had heard anything. No one had any idea what might have happened. The coworker who was supposed to pick Jason up was quickly cleared as a person of interest because her story checked out. She had been waiting at the high school just as she said, because police reviewed the security footage from the high school, and the cameras covering the parking lot and several entrances show her pulling up and waiting, but Jason never appeared on any of them. He never made it to the school. This means that whatever happened to him happened during the half-mile walk or the 8 blocks through that quiet residential neighborhood. Once investigators recognized that Jason's disappearance was unlikely to be voluntary, an extensive search effort was launched across Omaha's Benson neighborhood. Despite the resources devoted to the case, authorities found nothing that explained how a 19-year-old man could vanish during a half-mile walk on a quiet summer morning. Search teams focused on the route that Jason would have taken from his family home to the high school. Officers searched residential streets, alleys, parks, vacant lots, drainage areas, looking for any indication that Jason had been injured, abducted, or had left behind his personal belongings. Helicopters searched the area from above. They brought in horseback units and ground teams, and they searched a lot of the difficult areas on foot. Investigators even deployed infrared technology in hopes of detecting heat signatures or hidden remains. Everything they did turned up nada. So they expand their investigation, like I said, by interviewing his friends and neighbors and coworkers and his relatives, hoping that they could tell them something that would seem unusual now that wouldn't have back then, and possibly provide them a clue about his state of mind before he disappeared. And they explored, the investigators did, the possibility of personal conflicts, secret relationships, financial troubles, or any circumstance that might explain why he voluntarily would just leave his life behind. They found nothing. And just about everybody they interviewed described Jason as we have talked about. He was dependable, he's family oriented, he was planning his future, he had recently accepted that new job. They offered that tuition assistance, which got him back into college quicker. There was no evidence suggested he had plans to run away or disappear voluntarily. So investigators also examined his financial and electronic records, searching for any activity after June 13, 2001. His bank account, which contained approximately $650, remained untouched. His cell phone showed no suspicious calls or activity after he vanished, and the vehicle he had left at the repair shop was never claimed. Even his final paychecks from Fazoli's went uncashed. So inside his bedroom, everything remained exactly as he had left it. His personal belongings were still in place, and there was no indication that he had packed any type of clothing, supplies, made any kind of preparations to leave home without returning. Perhaps the most perplexing piece of evidence was the absence of the evidence itself. There was no blood, there was no signs of a struggle, no abandoned clothing, no discarded possessions, no eyewitness accounts, no forensic evidence pointing investigators towards a suspect or a vehicle. The security cameras at the high school were went over with a fine-tooth comb, and they never show anybody matching Jason's description showing up. So, again, whatever happened to him happened between his house and that high school, those 8 blocks, that half a mile, 15-minute walk, basically. The neighborhood is
not a big window.
No, it's not. And the neighborhood itself was, kind of added to this lack of evidence, because the streets between his home and the high school were lined with your middle America house. They had mature trees, people maintained their yards. And so on a late Wednesday morning in June, people living there could have been outside mowing their lawn, walking their dog, running errands, coming and going. Yet no one reported hearing any screams, witnessing any type of altercation, or seeing a young man forced into a vehicle. And again, the complete lack of physical evidence has become one of the defining characteristics of this case. Most criminal investigations produce some sort of trace, a witness, a discarded item, some sort of forensic evidence, or a timeline that investigators can follow. Jason's disappearance produced nothing other than his brother saw him walk out the door, and that was it. So more than 2 decades later, investigators remain confronted with the same question, and it was unsettling. How does someone disappear in broad daylight from a residential neighborhood without leaving behind a single clue? Now, over the years, theories have surfaced, though none of them have ever been confirmed. What is odd is there was a Reddit post, and now this Reddit user that posted this was an unconfirmed Reddit user. And this was many years after his disappearance. They claimed that they had been persistently pursued by a male driver in 2003 while walking less than a mile from Jason's street. Now, according to this user, Reddit user, the stranger was so persistent that he would often offer a ride and without knowing where the person was walking to. And when the car as he's slow rolling, talking to this guy walking. When they would reach an area where there was more people, he would speed up and drive off. Now, the Reddit user, and you have to take this with a grain of salt, stated that he looked similar to Jason in age, build, and appearance. So the question is, was there a predator operating in the Benson neighborhood? Someone who preyed on young men walking alone? I mean, like I said, this guy's not a verified Reddit user, so you have to take it with a grain of salt. But it is quite disturbing if any of that is true. So when you look at the layout of that neighborhood in which he disappeared, it even gets weirder. The route from his house near 48th and Pinckney Street to the high school on Maple Street is the walk that he would have made probably 1,000 times when he was in high school without giving it a second thought. It's just a straight shot, quiet residential streets, single family homes, big old trees, shaded sidewalks, all of that good stuff.
In a place you would think something like this could never happen.
Yeah, we're talking we're in the heart of middle class Omaha in middle America. So on that Wednesday morning, the streets would have been fairly quiet around the time he left because most of the adults would have been at work, and those children still living at home would have been home from school, sleeping late, watching TV, not, normal summer activities. Now, when I say that the streets were quiet, it doesn't mean they were empty. We're not talking about a ghost town. You could have had people mowing lawns. You could have had people walking their dog, bringing groceries in, whatever. But you would think someone would have seen something or heard something, because we're talking about 30 minutes between 10:45 when he left and when that coworker at 11:15 called back to his house. Something happened, and somehow no one was ever the wiser. It's just, whatever happened to him is just like he blinked out of existence. Now, police have theorized that Jason likely made it at least part of the way towards the school before whatever happened. Because we know that neighbor, Chester Link, saw him help his brother with the garbage cans and then saw him walking in the direction of the high school. His brother also saw him walking towards the high school when he left the house. So where did he disappear from? And the reason that I keep going back over the area is because it kind of restricts the possibilities as to what could have happened. You would not be able to quietly hide a struggle or an accident. There were houses on both sides of the street. Every street has windows facing the street, so it's not like he's walking down an alleyway where it's the back of the houses. And if we're talking about an abduction, you would think there would have been something to see or hear. The fact that no one did suggests one of two things. Either whatever happened was extremely quick and quiet, or it occurred in a vehicle. And the vehicle theory was, and has always been, the most convincing to the investigators. So if someone in a car approached Jason and convinced him somehow to get into the vehicle willingly, or they could have had a gun and brandished it and forced him into the car, then you're talking 30 seconds to a minute. Car pulls
Maybe
up.
less than that.
Yeah. I mean, you got a car, it pulls up, there's a brief conversation, door closes, vehicle drives off, not screeching the tires. Even if there were pedestrians, it may not have drawn any attention. The question, though, is if this vehicle theory is what happened, then who was driving the car and why did they pick Jason?
Well, in my opinion, if it's just if that's the correct scenario, I think it was just right place, right time, and just, took him out of convenience.
Well, when investigators did when they started looking forensic, like electronically, they examined his home computer looking for any evidence of online activity that could suggest that he was planning to leave or that he had been in contact with someone that was grooming him. But again, nothing. They go over his phone records, no suspicious activity there, no texts, no calls to unknown numbers, no pattern of contact with anyone that raised any flags. And again, his checking account has never been touched, sat at $650. So it's just, I don't know. The fact that no body was found means either he was or is still alive, which is highly unlikely after the 25 years, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. The flip side of that is his body was disposed of in a location that's never been discovered, like out of town, in the river, out of state. So again, there's no blood, there's no sign of a struggle, so there's possibly more than likely a non-violent confrontation at wherever he is taken from along that route. So you don't have any forensic evidence to go over. There's no fibers, there's no DNA, no fingerprints, nothing to point to any individual or a vehicle or even a weapon. So even when we talk about abduction cases, or you read about abduction cases, most perpetrators, even though they think they're careful, they leave something behind. And most crimes generate some kind of evidence, even if it is small, that investigators can find or follow. The fact that there's no evidence at all means that this perpetrator, if we're talking about the vehicle situation and he was abducted, is either one lucky SOB or he just was so careful and planned, or both. Now, some have considered that the perpetrator might have been someone who knew what they were doing, experience in invading detection, someone who had done it before, kind of like a serial offender operating in the Omaha area who knew how to take a victim without leaving any evidence behind, which is extremely unnerving, but it is a possibility. Now, Jason's profile, if you do a victim profile, it makes it even more puzzling. Now, on one hand, Jason was not an obvious target. He was an adult male, not a child, walking in a safe neighborhood in broad daylight. He had no known connection to dangerous people or activities, and by all the usual measures of risk, he would have been marked safe. On the other...
Well, depends on, the perpetrator, maybe that was exactly what he was looking for. That was his taste, for a horrifyingly lack of a better word. Maybe that was his ideal candidate,
Yeah, and that's the only thing that, if he was taken, that's the only thing that makes sense. So on the other hand, certain aspects of his personality may have made him more vulnerable. His shyness and trusting nature meant that he might not have been suspicious of someone who approached him under false pretenses, being friendly, offering a ride. His trusting nature could have also affected his ability to assess danger or respond quickly to a threat. Now, Jason's mom, Kelly, has spoken about how Jason might have been perceived by a predator. He was 6 foot 1 inch tall, slender built, weighing about 165 pounds. He was quiet and unassuming.
Yeah, he was a scrawny kid, but tall. That doesn't really match a whole lot of profiles.
And he wouldn't have appeared threatening or difficult to overpower, and his helpful nature always led him to see the good in people, even if, in this case, it was a ruse. So hypothetically, someone could have approached him claiming to need directions or asking for help or offering him a ride. Jason may have, engaged in a conversation instead of just saying nope. But all of this is pure speculation. We don't know what happened, but understanding who he was could help us understand the possibilities of what could have happened. More than 2 decades after Jason disappeared, investigators still have no suspects, no forensic evidence, no definitive explanation for what happened during his short walk. In the absence of answers, several theories have emerged over the years, each attempting to explain one of the most baffling missing person cases that we've ever covered. So we've kind of talked about the stranger abduction situation, and it's hard to dismiss this because that makes the most sense. And investigators think that this is the most plausible scenario, which involves a vehicle. Again, they could have pulled up, hey, I'm lost. Do you know how to get here? Can you show me how to get here? And then as they pass the high school, it's too late. Again, I'm thinking if they had a weapon of some sort, that would have probably made him much more compliable. Then you got the speed of which this would have taken that we've kind of talked about, how, probably under 30 seconds, they could have, presented their little ruse and then produced the weapon. He's in the car. They quietly drive off. Nothing. I don't know. I mean, out of all the ones we're going to go over, that makes the most sense. Now, the other one is an abduction by someone he knew. And that possibility is that he willingly went into the vehicle because he knew this person. But unlike the stranger situation where it's forced into a car, a familiar person stopping and offering him a ride would have attracted even less attention.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, that one, nobody would ever pay it any mind.
Yeah. And,
so strange.
And if you did witness it, you'd have been like, oh, that's Jason and so-and-so talking, and he's giving Jason a ride. So they would have not thought of anything unusual either. But again, right. Nobody's ever come forth and said, hey, we saw him get into this car. Nothing. Supporters of this theory point to Jason's trusting personality and polite nature. He would have accepted a ride from anybody that he knew without suspecting any danger. The challenge with this theory, though, is the absence of a viable suspect. They interviewed all of his friends, neighbors, coworkers, relatives, acquaintances that they could come up with, but they uncovered no evidence suggesting that anyone close to him or in his fringe circle had a motive to harm him or had any contact with him that morning. Another theory that is raised is that he was struck by a vehicle and that driver concealed the accident rather than report it. While this is not impossible, this is usually the most unlikely when we're discussing it, because if he had been hit, a collision would have been severe enough to cause him to scream, incapacitate him, and left physical evidence like busted headlights or car debris, blood, all of it.
Something.
Yeah. Concealing both a vehicle accident and a body in the middle of the day on a quiet neighborhood street would have been extremely.
So it would have been a wreck with no brake sounds, nothing.
Right.
And I don't know, man.
I don't buy that one just because of there's no, they didn't find, and I know everybody's like, well, there was 10 days before they started investigating. Yeah. I mean, a busted taillight or headlight or something like that, paint transfer or something. I don't know what the weather was. If there was a lot of rain, could have washed away any, physical evidence, but.
This is a neighborhood. What neighborhood doesn't have busybodies?
That's what I was about to say. Even in 2001, Karens were on the prowl.
Absolutely.
When Jason was first reported, now this is the voluntary disappearance, and this one is the tried and true. We have to always discuss this. So when he was first reported missing, law enforcement initially considered the possibility that he chose to leave voluntarily. Over time, however, this theory has largely been dismissed because he left behind his family, friends, college plans, a full bank, well, not full, but a bank account, 2 paychecks, personal belongings, and his vehicle. There has never been any confirmed financial activity, communication, employment history, or verified sighting connecting to Jason since June 13th of 2001. Those closest to him have consistently stated that disappearing without contacting his family would have been completely out of character. Remember, when he's talking to his friends on the phone and his brother's going to bed, he's like, hold on, I got to go tuck him in, and then would put the phone down like, I ain't missing this. So nothing in his life suggested that he was going to abandon everything that he had and just start over. The other possibility that investigators quietly acknowledge and think that could have happened is one of the more tragic ones, and that is, if he was abducted, is it possible he was killed shortly afterward and his remains concealed in a location that they've never searched and never thought about searching? While there's no direct evidence proving this occurred, the complete absence of activity following his disappearance strongly supports the conclusion that he did not voluntarily leave his life behind. You know, the bank account, again, we point to that. It's never been touched. Phone's never been turned on or used. There's no credible sightings. And there's a...
He's what, 17?
No, he was 19 when he disappeared.
19, but still, remember way, way, way long time ago when you were 19. Did you have your life, your shit together good enough to go leave your entire family and live a life on your own?
I ain't got my shit together at 51 to go leave and start over.
Dude, I couldn't tell you, like, the time it took me to graduate, I couldn't tell you how much money my mom loaned me from college. Like, I couldn't imagine trying, and I didn't have real bills. I just had half of a rent. That's it. She paid my car. She paid my phone. She paid that. Only thing I had to come up with was half the rent, and I still couldn't do that half the time. So imagine what job is a 19-year-old going to get where he can live on his own?
See, and that's the thing. He's working at Fazoli's. As far as I know, the mother and the father have never said that he had any bills. Obviously, he was paying for his car repairs because it was still at the shop. But, I mean, other than that.
We're talking about if you voluntarily disappear, you got to get a new social security number. You got to get a new ID. You got to get everything that none of us knew how to do at 19.
And the internet was in its infancy, and I'm sure you could have found it back in 2001. But, I mean, that would have been, you would have had to have researched it.
Like, who knew how to do something like that? I still don't know how to get a new social security number.
I'm sure that I could make a couple of phone calls. We can find some shady people down in the metro area that get us some documents.
Maybe.
But anyway, so without a body or physical evidence, investigators cannot prove what happened to Jason after he disappeared. Yet, the passage of more than, well, up to now, 25 years without a single verified trace has led to many of the people that look into this case, along with the investigators, that foul play is probably the most probable explanation. Ultimately, every theory shares the same fundamental problem. None can be conclusively proven. Jason disappeared walking those 8 ordinary blocks through a quiet Omaha neighborhood on a Wednesday morning. No witnesses came forward, no physical evidence was recovered, and no suspect has ever been identified. The truth remains hidden somewhere within those missing minutes between his home and the high school, 15 minutes. And that's left investigators and his family searching for answers that have remained elusive this whole time. In the 25 years since his disappearance, there has been no sign of him or no sign that he is alive anywhere. The FBI and Omaha police classified Jason's case as probable non-familial abduction. They believe foul play is the most likely explanation, but they have no suspects, no evidence, and no answers.
It's crazy. And the only thing that I can make sense of it would be the stranger danger type thing where the validity of the person riding around trying to get somebody to get in the car and get a ride. Maybe this guy tried this so many times and it finally worked, or maybe it didn't work to the point where he got frustrated and decided to bring a gun along and didn't even ask, just got out, rolled down the window, showed him the gun, said, "Get in the car, or I'm going to kill you." And he got in the car and unfortunately probably got killed anyway. I saw a thing, it was this whole thing about advice to women about staying safe. And it was as the guy said, "I'm a former detective here. You are more likely to survive a gunshot wound than you are a second location. Do not go with them." And I was like, holy Toledo, that's crazy. So if they say, get in the car, I'm going to shoot you, you are better off letting them shoot you than going with them. That is insanity to me.
It is. It's hard to wrap your brain around it.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's probably true.
Well, it goes against human nature too. You're like, okay, I don't want to live, and you're instead of like, fuck it, shoot me.
Right? Yeah. That's just insane. And one of the ladies on there said, what I like to do is wear a purge mask when walking alone. One of those glow-in-the-dark purge masks. Say, tends to work out. People tend to leave you alone.
Yeah, they will. So the families of missing persons often describe their experience as ambiguous loss, a psychological term for the traumatic loss of someone without the possibility of closure or a clear path to grief. Kelly Jolkowski, Jason's mother, learned this term years into her search for her son. It captured something essential about what she and her family were living through. You don't know if they're going to magically show up tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. She explained, quote, it's kind of like this limbo of not knowing. If someone dies, you know they're dead. You know they're buried. You know where their body is if you want to visit the grave, end quote. So for the Jolkowskis, there was none of that certainty. There was only endless question. What happened to Jason? Kelly described how her prayers changed over the years. At first, she prayed for Jason to walk through the door alive and well with some explanation for where he had been. Then she prayed simply for him to come home. Then she prayed for an answer. Any answer, even if it was the one she didn't want. Just bring him home. Bring him home alive became, if it's in your will, bring him home, which then became, if it's in your will, just give us an answer, and I'm willing to take that answer. So the family refused to let that grief remain passive. Instead, they transformed it into action in 2003. 2 years after Jason's disappearance, Jim and Kelly founded the Project Jason, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping families of missing persons. The organization provides resources, emotional support, case assessment, advocacy training to families navigating the nightmare of having a loved one disappear. Kelly threw herself into the work and completed more than 100 hours of professional training in crisis intervention and peer support. She spoke with families across the country who were living in the same limbo she was. She became a voice for the missing and for those left behind. Quote, we feel that some good is coming out of Jason's story, end quote. Kelly said that the family also lobbied for systemic change. One of the lessons they learned from Jason's case was that Nebraska lacked a centralized database for missing persons, a place where information could be gathered and circulated effectively. After years of advocacy, their efforts paid off. In 2005, the Nebraska legislature passed Jason's Law, which created a statewide missing persons database. It was a monumental achievement, a policy change that might help other families avoid some of the frustrations the Jolkowskis had experienced. Kelly's work did not go unrecognized. In 2010, she received the Volunteer for Victims Award from U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder. In 2014, she was honored with the Nebraska Governor's Point of Light Award. However, no award, no legislation, no amount of advocacy work could answer the question that haunts that family every day. Where is Jason?
And it is definitely tragedy, but at least they've turned it into something positive for others. I mean, I know that they would give it up. They would gladly trade every second of it for their son back, but that what they're doing is admirable is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, it is. And we hear about these families, especially, and this is no shade on the dads, but you always hear about these moms that they make it their life work to make sure that if another family has to go through this, they're not alone. So over the years, Project Jason distributed more than 50,000 missing person flyers for missing people, provided guidance to families across the country, became a respected voice in the missing persons community. And Kelly, unfortunately, became an expert in the psychology of ambiguous loss. She learned to live with the not knowing, as she called it. Not getting over Jason's disappearance because that would be impossible, but finding a way to carry on and keep hope alive. She would state, quote, you go through partial stages of grief, but you can't go through all the stages. You don't know what you're grieving for, end quote. Now, and that insight helped her bond with some of those other families, and so that they would know, hey, there's someone here that understands what I'm going through. The impact of his disappearance on his younger brother, Michael, has been profound and everlasting. Michael was 13 when Jason vanished, and he saw his brother leave. He was one of the last people, if not the last person, to see Jason alive. In the years since, Michael's grown up, married, become a father himself. His sons, Ryan, Michael, and Lincoln, know about Uncle Jason, the uncle they never met. They have participated in the remembrance services, painting rocks and placing them at the marker for Jason at Roberts Skate Park. Michael has described how he thinks about his brother regularly, especially during family milestones, weddings, baptisms, birthdays, etc. Quote, every celebration is shadowed by Jason's absence. Every joy is tempered by the awareness of who is missing. I'm sad that there has been no information on Jason's whereabouts. I know the family will eventually get their answer, whether it be in this life or the afterlife, end quote. The case of Jason Jolkowski continues to attract attention from those who study missing person cases. Amateur sleuths, true crime enthusiasts have analyzed every aspect of this case, searching for angles that professional investigators may have missed. People have mapped the route Jason would have walked, examined satellite imagery of the area, compiled timelines of the morning events. Some have speculated about possible connections to other unsolved cases in the Omaha area. Professional investigators continue to maintain an active file on Jason's case, and Jason would have turned 20 years old on June 24th, 2001, just 11 days after he disappeared. He never reached that birthday. And in the years since, they always mark his passing anniversary, the disappearance, by gathering at that Roberts Skate Park in Omaha. And I think one of the first years they planted a tree in his honor. They have remembrance services. They keep distributing posters, like the painted rocks that his brother talked about. And those painted rocks have hashtag Find Jason J on them. The 20th anniversary in 2021 was particularly painful, and Kelly noted that she had now lived without Jason for more years than she had lived with him. Her son had been I know, man, it's heartbreaking.
That's brutal, man.
Her son was 19 when he vanished. 20 years have passed since. Quote, unfortunately, with this mark, I will not have had him more years than I had him in my life since he disappeared at the age of 19. Kelly has spoken about the evolution of her prayers that we talked about. Somebody, somewhere, saw something that may just be just inconsequential, but it could be the key. Or someone's carrying a secret that could end a family's 20 plus years of waiting. If you are that person, please come forward. You could be afraid. You might think your information is not important. You might not want to get involved, but consider the family you could help. Consider the closure you could provide. Consider the weight you could lift from your own conscience if you are the guilty party. Even if you have only a small piece of the puzzle, it might be that piece that breaks everything. Please reach out to the Omaha Police Department. Call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Reach out anonymously if you need to, but reach out. And if you are simply someone who has watched, or not watched, but listened to us, and you know something, or you heard something, reach out. Call the Omaha Police Department at 402-444-5600. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children are at 800-843-5678. You can also reach out to the FBI tip line. Again, no piece of evidence in this case that you may be holding on to is inconsequential or insignificant.
To me, I think it has to be an abduction. And that's terrifying because there's not even been a suspect. Yeah. This person, if they abducted him, they've not even been considered. They got away with it scot-free. If that doesn't terrify you, I don't know what will, because to me, I just can't get my mind to think about what that type of person, what goes through their head. It's been what, 20 years?
25 years this
25
June.
years.
Like, I want to say, what was the day he disappeared? I mean, we may have just passed. Yeah, June 13th, we just passed it.
This person's been living with this for 25 years. It would eat me alive. I couldn't live with myself knowing what I did. It would destroy my psyche. I would be a horrifyingly bad alcoholic. I'd probably drink myself to death just from the guilt, because that's just how I am. I feel guilty about pretty much everything. Oh, I should have opened that door for that lady. I can't believe I didn't do that. Why didn't you do that? You could have been a gentleman. I will think about stuff like that for days. If I murdered someone, I don't know, man. It's wild.
It is, but it takes a psychopath to be able to compartmentalize that stuff.
It really does.
Well, Coach, like I said, my personal theory is the car situation. I mean, it had to be an abduction. I'm thinking there had to be I don't think it was anybody that he knew, just because they interviewed everybody they said they interviewed. But I'm thinking, here's another thing, though. This is what's so scary, too. When we talk about some of the unsolved serial cases, like murder cases, that whole thing where just a chance encounter, he could have never saw it coming. Like, they could have just said, hey, do you know how to get to so-and-so? And he was like, leaned into the door window. Yeah, you just go down here, and then boom, there's the gun. Get in the car. I mean,
yep. It can be that quick and that simple.
Yeah, man, it's awful.
That's scary.
It is. It's terrifying. Once again, that's why I don't like going out in public.
These people suck.
It's too peoply out there.
They just suck, man. People are terrible.
But anyway, all right, so recommendations. Coach actually sent me this, and I have been, like, listening to it. I saw a reel or a TikTok. I think his name's Bryce Zabel. Or Bruce Zabel. I think his name's Bryce. He was one of the co-writers for the old TV show Dark Skies. It was on NBC back in 95, 96. It was X-Files-ish.
It's about an alien invasion, right?
Yeah, it's what I told my wife. It's like you meshed X-Files with V. And so, the Y Files, if I know a lot of people don't like the Hecklefish, which he does get on my nerves, but the guy that does Y Files has started a podcast. That's I think The Basement is something along the lines. He interviews this guy, Bryce Zabel, and he tells this story in that interview that will blow your mind. I mean, and it's just one thing after another. It is about the UFO situation, and I highly recommend the Y Files. Bryce Zabel, I think, is the guy's name. Zabel is definitely. So if you type into YouTube Y Files Zabel, it'll come up. But he also, along with his co-writer and co-producer of Dark Skies, they've started a podcast called Light, Frequency, and Sound, or Sound from it's some conglomeration of those three words. And they start off with the story he tells in the Y Files, and they've got like 20 episodes, and so they kind of go chronologically. They tell that story in the first episode, and then they back up and kind of do a chronological thing of how, starting with Roswell or before, the government's been involved in that thing. So I highly recommend it.
Goes so far as to say that Steven Spielberg.
Yeah. He may have been read into some things or contacted by some people.
Yeah, saying that Close Encounters of the Third Kind is based on a true story, because Steven Spielberg signed a thing with the government, and they were going to divulge secrets to him that nobody else was going to get.
And that's
he's
part
pretty wild.
That's part of this interview. This guy is holding a premiere party at his house, and they all have these little badges that in the show the main, protagonists wear, and it has to do with MJ12. And so they had like a little photo booth, and they gave you these little badges, so it had like your little mugshot on it and had your name and it had magic on it. Well, there's a guy that shows up to the party that doesn't have a badge, and he's basically like, hey, you got a lot of things right in your pilot. And he's like, dude, the pilot's not aired. And so he kind of tells some things that happen in the pilot because he presses him. The guy's spot on, and he's like, we would like to work for you, and kind of slowly drip disclosure in your show. And it kind of pisses him off at the beginning. But it's extremely interesting. And if you're wanting to watch Dark Skies, the show, YouTube's the only place to find it unless you're going to buy the DVDs.
And who buys DVDs anymore?
And I'm going to warn you, if you start watching them, there's not but about 4 or 5 episodes that someone has actually brought up to the standard of our TVs now, so it's pretty grainy. Low quality. So, but anyway, that is my recommendation. I think you got one too, don't you, there, Cooch?
I do. It's a podcast. It is The Myth Fits. If you don't know this podcast, it is Carrie Bynum and Tori Belleci from the Mythbusters. They created their own podcast, but unfortunately, Grant Imahara is dead, and Jamie and Adam hate each other, so you're not going to get them on there. Especially not they might have be on there, but they're not going to be on there together. If they get Grant, that would be crazy. But anyway, I'm specifically talking about an episode with Les Stroud, the Survivor Man. They do 2 parts to it. The first part's all right. Talks about how he hates Bear Grylls, by the way. Can't stand the man. Says he's never met him, but he can't stand him because he's a fake-ass mofo. But the second part of it is all about Les Stroud's experiences with Bigfoot. And if you don't know, Les Stroud is a firm believer in Bigfoot. And if you're talking about a man that spends the majority of his life in the wilderness alone, and he believes in it, there might be something to it. He's talking about how, like, episodes of Survivor Man, he's hearing, like, what he would describe as a gorilla calling to him, giving him a warning call, and he's like, the only problem is I'm in the middle of Alaska.
Yeah, in that episode, he kind of cuts in. If you see, he's got a YouTube video where he discusses that, and he cuts in the footage, and you can clearly see him snap his head around and look behind him, and then they zoom in, and there is movement back there. So, yeah, it's wild, man. His stories, this stuff, and he always says, he's like, look, I'm a skeptic that wants to believe. I've just not seen the proof. And he went to, and this is a controversial figure, Todd Standing. He went with Todd Standing. They did a whole Discovery show on that. Where he was with Todd up there, and where Todd supposedly has habituated him, and it's wild. It's wild, man.
That's the unfortunate part.
And he said when he started that TV show, he said, I know he's a polarizing figure. He said, but I'm trying to find information wherever I can.
Polarizing would be a very
he was being
word for
yeah,
that,
he was being nice.
I just, as much as I want to believe, I don't believe his bullshit.
No,
not at all.
Well, Coach, you got anything else?
You knows I don't.
Deuces.